good evening, bonsoir. I want to say a very, very sincere thank you to Ashoka for inviting me along to be part of this event. I am honoured and I am humbled to be described as a change maker. And I was asked recently to write the foreword to an anthology of poetry and literature written by Irish primary school children. And within that foreword is a line in our own Irish language. Is é sin an driacht atá lastig onan goléir. And the translator has just gone berserk now, I assume, at this point. But what it means in English is very, very simple. That is the magic that is within all of us. And I was referring to the magic of creativity, and in particular the talent that each and every one of us possesses to stare at a blank computer screen or a blank page and slowly fill that with our thoughts and with our dreams. And the young people who contributed to that superb book had the courage to believe that their story was worth telling, and for me it was a joy to witness them expressing themselves so eloquently. They succeeded in freeing their minds from the rough walls that imprison all of us from time to time, and the results were simply beautiful to behold. These young Irish authors, they drew from a wellspring, a long tradition, centuries old, of storytelling and literature in Ireland. And Ireland has produced 4 Nobel Prize winners in literature, and one of them, a man called Seamus Heaney, who passed away recently, once wrote that the main thing when it comes to writing is simply to write for the joy of it. And the work of those children, for me, was inspirational, and it was quite moving at times, because in every contribution, in every poem, in every story, I sensed real creative freedom, creativity without any boundaries whatsoever. And I got a feeling that these children, in writing for this book, they weren't afraid to be judged. In fact, they didn't even expect to be judged. They weren't in an exam. There were no marks to be awarded for their writing or for their poetry. They simply had a real joy and an inspiration in the creative process, and they wanted to share that joy and that talent with their teachers, with their parents, and probably most of all with their peers. And having read that book, I wondered how we as policymakers, as teachers, as social entrepreneurs, as change makers could protect and could nurture that creative freedom, that courage and that self-belief that every child has within them from the day they're born. And it was that same burning question and the chance to meet some very, very creative people that inspired me to attend an event called Change Nation in Dublin Castle back in March 2012, organised by Ashoka Ireland. It was an extraordinary event. It was the first time in Ireland that we were exposed to people who were genuine change makers, social entrepreneurs from all over the world. And in fact, the concept of social entrepreneurism was in its very, very early days in Ireland back in March of 2012. And I'll be very, very honest in telling you, I had a very hazy understanding of what the word social entrepreneur meant. I'm both a dreamer and I'm a pragmatist. I'm a musician, but I also love technology, I love science, I love real hard data derived from good research. And there's always that inner conflict going on in my head. And I suppose the Change Nation event appealed, first of all, I have to say, to the dreamer in me. But the pragmatist was counter-arguing, saying, why are you going to this event? This event will be full of nebulous, ephemeral ideas espoused by people who think that the world would be a wonderful place if we all hugged one another every day. And perhaps upon reflection, they're actually right. But on that day in Dublin Castle, I met another dreamer and a pragmatist all rolled into one. I met a guy called Dr. John Mighton, who's a playwright and an exceptional mathematician. And John is the creator of a program called Jump Maths. And I sat with John, and he told me of his new and exciting way to teach maths to children, a new methodology that brought every child in every class to a very high understanding of some very complex mathematical concepts. And he did it simply by breaking those very large concepts down into tiny little micro steps and ensuring that every child in taking that step understood the step previously and went on to build a really, really deep understanding of maths. And I was very impressed. But what really impressed me was when John opened his laptop and showed me some incredible research that he had done in Canada to prove conclusively that jump maths had worked in primary schools in Canada. So I was taken by John's story, and to cut a long story short, just 18 months later, we launched a jump math pilot program in 24 schools across Ireland. John actually travelled from Canada to train Irish teachers, and we're now carrying out an in-depth piece of research to determine, and I hope it will, that jump math can work in an Irish context. And also on that day at Change Nation in Dublin Castle, I met a lady called Jill Viale, the founder of Playworks, and Jill outlined to me her vision of creating a space for every child in every playground across the world, a place where every child belongs. How many of us here remember standing in our playground and feeling left out, not being at the centre, being on the fringes? Well, Jill argues we need to find a structured play methodology that brings every child from the fringes right into the heart of playtime every lunchtime in every school in the world. And Jill believes, as I do, that children have innate leadership skills, and we need to give them ways to take responsibility for their own play and ultimately for each other. And thankfully, again in conjunction with the same people in Ashoka, Ireland, and some extraordinary change makers in the Irish education system, we are now trialling Playworks in 2 schools across the country. We're looking at training teachers in the methodology in September, and we're also looking at the children who have already experienced Playworks becoming evangelists, going online, Skyping other children in Ireland and indeed abroad to tell them of their very, very positive experience of the Playworks approach. And integral to that Playworks program is the view that children they're natural problem solvers, they're natural creative thinkers. And it's that kind of thinking that first inspired Eric Dawson to found Peace First. And he also was in Dublin on that wonderful day. It was a very special day. And Eric believes that rather than trying to police bullying and police conflict, we need to stop conflict and bullying happening in the first instance. He wants to create a way for children to learn at a very early age compassion, peace, and empathy. And yes, thankfully, again with the same people, the same team, we now have a Playworks program underway in Ireland, and we're getting very, very positive feedback from parents, from teachers, from students, and again, we're going to launch a teacher training program to ensure we can spread Playworks across the whole of the Irish system. And for all three of these innovative programs, Jump Maths, Peace First and Playworks is the first time that they've been trialled outside of the United States. It's the first time they have reached out from the United States and come to Europe. And we're very, very happy in Ireland to be that bridging point between these two wonderful continents. And we are working to set these three programs in an Irish context and amending them slightly while still preserving the integrity of their intent. And that work, we hope, will allow us to share our knowledge and our wisdom around these particular programs with our European counterparts. And over the last year, my interaction with change makers from Ireland and abroad has inspired me to work with a group of exceptional people in Ireland to start a new movement called Excited, the Digital Learning Movement. And just 2 weeks ago in Dublin Castle, we had our first event, a digital education, a digital learning festival, and it was very, very exciting indeed. We brought together young people, because if we're going to try and amend and evolve an education system that will inspire young people, surely you've got to ask them what inspires them. We can't dictate without knowing exactly what makes them happy in terms of education. We brought together teachers, academics, people from the ICT industry, researchers, all in one room, one weekend to try and figure out how we're going to allow Ireland to lead the way in a global learning revolution that's underway right now in possibly every classroom in the world. And it is happening in Irish schools because of two reasons. First, we have exceptional, trailblazing, innovative teachers, and we have children who are using technology like it's never been used before. They're actually starting to teach themselves. And I will just describe to you the reaction of one teacher who came up on the stage in Dublin Castle, and she showed us a video of a project, a film, about the Irish famine, that horrendous time in Ireland's history back in the 1840s. And that film was produced by a 9-year-old boy, and it was really, really good. There was YouTube clips, there was pictures, there was a narrative. It was really, really professionally produced. And the teacher said, and these are powerful, powerful words, having shown that video to 500 people in a room, she said, you know something? I'm no longer teaching history. I'm creating historians. And that's what's possible with technology in education, and that's what we're trying to do in the future in terms of how we empower students and empower teachers to use that technology in a very, very wise and exceptional way. So, what have I learned? What have I learned? I'm a politician, I'm a minister in the Department of Education. What have I learned over the last 3 years in working with a wonderful group of change makers in Ireland? Firstly, and most importantly, I've learned that teachers are the most powerful force, the most powerful people in shaping the societies of the future. There's no question about that, none whatsoever. And with passionate and committed teachers on your side, just about anything is possible in the future. Secondly, as a politician, it takes a lot of work to earn people's trust. And perhaps that shouldn't be the case, but it is, it's the reality. But once you earn that trust, and you have a group of people working with you, it's very important to work hard in sustaining and building that trust. Thirdly, it's okay to start small. You can't change the world overnight. You can't even change a tiny little country like Ireland overnight. You just have to sow the seed of an idea in a few people's minds, and for me, it was that group of really, really passionate teachers and educators who simply understood from the start what I was setting out to achieve. It's about sowing that seed, letting it germinate, and slowly building a group of people who are as passionate about change as you are. And if the idea is good enough and the passion is strong enough, the change will happen. Fourthly, I now know there are change makers absolutely everywhere. They're all over the place. They're in politics, they're in big global for-profit companies, they're in the public service, they're in the teaching profession, they're in our own communities, they are everywhere. But it takes time. And it takes energy to seek them out, to connect with them. And I believe it's only possible to do so by unashamedly identifying yourself as an idealist, by wearing your heart on your sleeve to a certain extent, and hoping that others see themselves in you and are willing to work with you. And finally, I've learned that in all of us, there's an incredible transformative power, a yearning that we all have as a species to make our world, our country, our communities better places. That's the magic that is within all of us. Let's use it wisely and let's use it often. Thank you.